But that prolonged fasting is what really helps clean up our cellular health, clean up our metabolism. And we see weight loss with that. We see people come off of medication, which is, gosh, isn't that what we all want? To be able to live healthier for longer. And if we can do so with less medication, that's really what prolonged fasting can do for anybody.
Welcome to the Suburban Warrior Podcast, the podcast that inspires, educates, and empowers women navigating the chaos of midlife, perimenopause, and menopause. I am your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, a holistic health coach and fierce advocate for women's wellness. With a background in nursing, the pharmaceutical industry, and integrative nutrition, I blend medical expertise with a holistic approach to help women heal naturally, integrate science-backed therapies, and take control of their health. After enduring my own 10-year battle with perimenopause symptoms, I've made it my mission to ensure that no woman has to suffer in silence. Join me as I share expert insights, real-life stories, and actionable strategies to help women reclaim their vitality, prioritize their well-being, and redefine midlife wellness with grit and grace. What's up, warriors? Welcome back to another episode of the Suburban Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Chrissy Pfeiffer, and I am so sorry because this week my voice has just gone. I am like a lot of other people and probably have come down with something, and it's just attacking my voice. But other than that, I feel great, and I'm so excited about my next guest. Ashley Bizzell is a registered dietitian and certified diabetes care and education specialist with over 15 years of experience. As clinical nutrition manager at L Nutra Health, she oversees clinical nutrition, coaching, curriculum development, and training for global partners. She works closely with leadership to advance type 2 diabetes remission initiatives. Ashley's expertise includes weight management and lifestyle changes. She holds a Bachelor's of Science from Clemson University and completed her diabetic internship at Winthrop University. Welcome to the podcast, Ashley.
Thank you so much for having me today, Chrissy. I'm excited to be here and to talk about something that's really relevant for women in midlife. I'm in my 40s, so that includes me, and how we can, take charge of our metabolic health and feel empowered in this stage of life.
Absolutely. And this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. I love talking about metabolic health because it touches every area of our body.
Yes.
And nutrition is so important and impactful for that, as well as intermittent fasting and all the things. So I'm really excited. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. So first, tell us a little bit about you and sort of like your experience in this area, why this is important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I've been a dietitian, and I just hit 20 years this summer, and it's hard for me to wrap my brain around that number, but I spent the very beginning of my career in outpatient care, and generally as a dietitian, you're seeing people with diabetes or looking to lose weight, have high blood pressure. And I did that for a little bit and then moved into the hospital and got into critical care. And I did that for probably a decade. And when 2020 happened and life changed for so many of us, we had to adjust. And I had kids that were not old enough to be at home by themselves doing school. And so I left the hospital and got into telehealth. And that's when I was itching for change anyway. But it was like the push that I needed to dive back into prevention. I had been working for years with people in the end stages, and I wanted to really get back to get to work with my patients on a consistent basis. There's a specialness to having a relationship with somebody that you work with and actually getting to see them make changes and feel empowered. And so it gave me the opportunity to go back to my original roots. So one thing I really loved and was passionate about, and to really help people improve their life, stay out of the hospital, really improve quality of their life and increase health span. So really over the last 5 years or so, I've been in telehealth, and I've been with the company that I'm with now, L Nutra, who you may be familiar with, Prolon, our consumer division. But I've been working there as a dietitian over the last couple of years, and am just beyond fascinated with the science of
Yeah.
fasting and how it can truly have an impact on our overall metabolic health for any age. But I especially see a lot of women in peri and postmenopause that are really struggling with this kind of midlife changes. Our hormones are shifting, our metabolism slows, and just really needing support and encouragement and practical ways to help improve their health. And so that's really what I'm passionate about and why I really got my diabetes specialty in addition to being a dietitian, because there are people that need help and I want to be that person for them.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I want to get into intermittent fasting because it's such a hot topic.
Yes.
But before we do that, you mentioned, prevention. And I
Mm,
think that is so important for people to understand, right? Like,
yes.
first of all, it's never too late to start changing your habits and changing your nutrition. Talk to me a little bit about the difference between, really prevention and starting to shift now instead of when you start to really experience symptoms
Yeah.
and then you're trying to reverse those symptoms. Talk to me about what you see in practice there.
Sure. Yeah. Prevention is so key. And I think, a lot of times we just get busy
Yeah.
and
Yes.
and all individuals, but I know I'm speaking as a mother and a female, that a lot of times we tend to put ourselves on the back burner, and take care of
Yeah.
everybody else first, and just kind of let our health go. And but really, if we can put into play some good habits, that we can really have a long-term impact. Actually, just this year, I was reading a statistic and it really struck me because I know that a lot of our society is overweight or obese. I know our eating habits have gotten out of hand despite all the medications on the market, despite all the health products in our grocery stores. But 93% are metabolically unhealthy. And
Yeah.
that's just a scary, scary statistic. So if we can just really, and I think one of the reasons why that happens is because we don't feel necessarily the effects. Like if you have a fever, you're going to treat it immediately because you feel the effects. It makes you feel terrible. If you are diagnosed with cancer, I mean it's a horrendous diagnosis and you want to do everything you can right then to treat it. But metabolic disease is different. It doesn't really have those feelings necessarily. A lot of times we kind of live in denial. Things just kind of slip up. Our weight creeps up. Bad habits come into play. We start to eat out a little bit more. Maybe our blood pressure's up some, or we had our physical and our A1C was like borderline pre-diabetes, but we just don't take it seriously. And that's where
Yeah.
prevention is important. And even modeling that out for our children too. I was at Starbucks the other day. It's in my local grocery store. It's right across from the high school. I was amazed at all the
Oh my
kids at
gosh.
7 a.m.
Yeah.
that had these huge, pink drinks, chocolate drinks, caramel drizzle. And I just thought, oh, that is their breakfast. And just those bad habits that start early, early that, if we
Yeah.
can help get in there and make a difference, that prevention can really have a huge impact on our aging.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And I do feel like those Starbucks, as soon as you said Starbucks,
Not
I
to
know
knock
exactly what you're
Starbucks.
talking about.
There's things there that
No,
we
but
can
I
drink.
mean, but it is everywhere and
Yeah,
it's near every school and all these high school kids are and middle school kids are
yeah,
just like you said, that is their breakfast. And by the way, they don't know better.
they
They
don't.
just think they're getting a drink.
Yeah,
They have no idea the amount of sugar
right,
and what it's doing to their bodies,
right.
you know.
Yeah,
And hopefully this type of education at a younger age will help.
that's what I wish there was more of in the schools, more
Yes.
nutrition education, not just the physical science and
Right.
biology, but some of this practical science. It is science. So now we can help
Absolutely.
our overall health.
Yeah. So tell me, why do you think that we're seeing such like an interest in fasting and longevity right
Yes,
now? Like, because it's all over.
it is. It is all over. I think, over the last few years, people are looking for any way to
Yeah.
improve health. I mean, clearly, obesity is not going anywhere. Metabolic disease is not going anywhere. There's so many things out there, and there's a lot of food noise on top of it that it's hard to
Yeah.
know what's the best thing. But I think, intermittent fasting is a way that we can improve our health. We can condense that eating window and try to improve eating there. What I see people do wrong though is they'll be like, oh, I just eat 8 hours within an 8 hour window or 6 hour window, but they're not really mindful of what they're eating. They're just shortening the
Yeah.
window. But where we really see benefits is when we improve the quality of what we eat. But, I really promote more of a 12-12, sometimes a little tighter on occasion, depending on the individual, but a nice circadian fast every day. I mean, that's a great first step into intermittent
Yeah.
fasting if you've never done any. And, our company has a lot of great products too to help support that. If you're wanting to kind of inch in and get a feel, products that kind of fly under the radar, your body doesn't recognize you're eating, but you're getting some nourishment so that you can play around with a little bit longer fast in a safe way.
Yeah. So when you say a circadian fast, is that like the 12-12? Because that's
Yes.
like our body's natural rhythm, right?
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
two, I mean, like best practice with the circadian fast would be to not eat anything 3 hours before bedtime too. So looking at that window, maybe that's a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then you go to bed at 10. And that way your food has time to digest. So when you lie down at night, your body's done with the majority of the digestion, everything can rest together. Rest is so
Yeah.
important. It's so important to healing and prevention too.
Yeah, absolutely. So explain to us a little bit why fasting impacts the body at the cellular level, why
Yes,
that's important.
it is. It's a great question. The way I always like to tackle this first is because people are a little bit more familiar with intermittent fasting, which has weight loss
Yeah.
benefits, metabolic benefits. And that's something that I really think of as more of any type of fasting that's under 48 hours. Anything over 48 hours, I consider more prolonged fasting. And that's really where our company did years, I mean, over 25 years of research with NIH funding in prolonged fasting because there were a lot of benefits for prevention that were seen. And so there was this need for innovation in this space. And so we have this technology called the fasting mimicking diet. And I know people think of us as a fasting company, but it's really a fast that you do with nourishment. And what's
Okay.
so great about it is it's structured. So essentially, there's a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, and you get the benefits of a prolonged fast. So, what those benefits are, and you just touched on it with the cellular improvements, disease modification, what we see when we don't trigger certain nutrient sensing pathways. And there's several of them, but IGF-1 is one you may have heard of. mTOR is
Yeah.
another, PKA. When our body's going to prolong fasting, they don't trigger these sensing pathways, and which usually tell our cells when to grow, when to repair, how to operate. But when we don't trigger those, it gives the body rest and it allows
Okay.
the body to self clean. And the fancy word for self clean is autophagy, auto meaning self,
Yeah.
phagy meaning eat. And it's our body's way of going in essentially and eating, misfolded proteins, cellular components that are damaged or, maybe some mutation, like things that are just sitting in our body. And it will go in and eat at those first and clean those up. And what happens to the body is there's reduction in inflammation, there's improvement in insulin sensitivity, which when we
Yeah.
age, a lot of times there's more resistance, especially in midlife with all the kind of hormone shifts and energy levels all over the place. We start to have some irregularities in blood sugar control.
Yeah.
And so this really kind of gets in there, cleans up the body and helps kind of those cells to be more efficient so that when you do eat again after those 5 days, although you're getting nourishment, but I mean, when you eat again, your normal diet, we
Sure.
encourage you to eat with whole foods, as many plant foods that day as possible because you've cleaned up your cells. And then I always like to explain them like sponges. You've completely wrung them out and they are ready to absorb nutrients. So you really want to fuel with good foods then. So nobody wants to be a saint every day. And
Right.
we can't. And even myself, I mean, it's
Yeah.
Halloween tomorrow and there's chocolate sitting in my house. And honestly, even just a little bit ago, I was like, oh, I would love to open up that bag. But I'm not. I'm not going to do it. Not that we can't ever do it. It just, this wasn't good quality chocolate anyway. So, but,
Not
but
worth the cheat. Yeah.
so yes, I just stuff that my kids picked out and wanted to give out tomorrow. But it's really about putting into play good practices, good nutrition, trying to avoid less processed foods, trying to eat more nutrient dense foods, more fiber, more good quality complex carbs. We don't see carbs as an enemy, and so it's really more about a balanced kind of Mediterranean diet that we
Yeah.
really push for. But that prolonged fasting is what really helps clean up our cellular health, clean up our metabolism, and we see weight loss with that. We see people come into remission from diabetes, come off of medication in
Wow.
our programs too, and which is, gosh, isn't that what we all want? To be able
Yeah,
to
it's
live
amazing.
healthier for longer, and if we can do so with less medication, that's really what prolonged fasting can do for anybody.
Yeah. And since it helps with metabolic health, have you seen it help people with like conditions that, like a PCOS,
Yeah,
if they have, which is sort of really a metabolic dysfunction,
yeah,
and help to reverse those symptoms?
yes. I actually see a lot of women that have PCOS,
Yeah.
and sometimes they're on medications like metformin that a lot of people take as a first line defense drug with diabetes. And it's hard because, well, I'm thinking of one member in particular I saw this week. She so desperately wants to have
Yeah.
children, and so she's trying to improve her health right now. She's trying to get into a
Right.
better place with her weight, and so that's really what we've been focused on. That's why I love the prolonged fasting. And if you are healthy, we have programs to support you in Proline, but in our metabolic health programs, or even if you have diabetes in the diabetes program, there are dietitians that are there to support you, and we do labs so we can look at that together. We look at CGMs. Some of my PCOS members have CGMs, and we'll read those together to try to use that
Yeah.
as an educational tool. But it's really about helping to improve inflammation, to help improve that insulin resistance that a lot of times you see hand in hand with PCOS. And so we do that with a couple of interventional cycles of fasting. It's not something you do every month for life, but we might try to do 5 days a month for a couple months right in a row, and then focus on good quality health. And I mean, that's what really has an overall improvement in their weight and cardiometabolic risk factors, their biomarkers. So, but we have lots of women that are just, they get to a spot where they feel a little bit hopeless and helpless.
Yeah.
They're like, I am
Right.
stuck, whether it's PCOS, whether it's just like starting to see high blood pressure, even some of those things. I had a lady
Or
just,
high
or
cholesterol.
high
Yeah.
cholesterol. Exactly. I had a lady
Yeah.
last week and she was like, Ashley, I just don't want to have the same pharmacy as my mother. And all of a sudden I'm feeling old. And she just meant she didn't want to be in the same path, take the same medications. Like seeing those things was starting to scare her and she didn't really know where to begin. And so we've been working
Yeah.
through that. And I love seeing when people feel empowered, they feel confident, they feel like, okay, I can do this. I think that's the
Yeah.
beauty kind of prolonged
Absolutely.
fasting is it gives you usually see some kind of quick results, and it kind of motivates you to keep going. And then in the structured programs, you have somebody there to support you, and we have community too. Community is so important to overall health
Absolutely.
in all aspects of health, not just nutrition, but it's nice to have people that you can talk to that are going through the same things and share, your wins together, celebrate or commiserate together too. All of those things. But it's
Yes.
it's women supporting women. It is so helpful to improving health too.
So when you talk about a prolonged fast,
Yes.
how long is that fast?
Yes, that's a great question. 5 days
Okay.
is the prolonged fast, and you get calories every day. A lot of people say, how many calories is it? Day one is usually around 1,100 calories. And that
Okay.
is your transition day. So that's the day that your body really starts to go from burning glucose as its main source of fuel into burning on days 2 through 5 fat and ketones, fatty acids.
Right.
And then autophagy, that word I was talking about earlier, that really begins on day 3. And then day 4 and 5, autophagy continues. And in fact, you still are in a state of ketosis. That's not really the purpose of the prolonged fast, but that is something that you're in. And then the autophagy is really what we are trying to achieve. You have that cellular rejuvenation and renewal. And oftentimes when people are going through the 5 days, on those days 4 and 5, when you would think, gosh, you're having under 1,000 calories those 4 days, you would think, I'm going to be starving. I'm going to have no energy. I'm not going to be able to do my daily activities. Day 4 and 5, you even feel this renewed sense of energy, and sometimes even a little extra. You feel good. You feel light. You feel active. You feel that sometimes that brain fog for many is removed. And that's something that a lot of times we feel in midlife too. I hear a lot of women talk about brain fog, and so it really helps your body just kind of focus. And two, when you've invested that time in yourself, when you do a prolonged fast, most people coming out of it are like, gosh, I spent that time invested in my health. I don't want to ruin it now by going out and, getting a big meal of fried foods and things. You're motivated to want to eat better and exercise. In fact, this was so cool. We have so many clinical trials, and I always like to share that we are truly science backed. In fact, this was really, all the research behind the fasting mimicking diet really started with cancer research. And I think in the very, very near future, we'll have a division specifically for cancer, probably for autoimmune even sooner. But metabolic health was our first space that we really started in, because it doesn't impact just one area of the body. It's our cells. They're everywhere. Every part of our body is impacted. Our skin looks better because the hydration of the skin cells improved. Our smell is better because, that's something I never even knew. With obesity, a lot of times there's decreased, ability to smell and taste. And that affects our quality of life. So everything's impacted. But our research shows reduction in visceral fat, which is that fat that we hold around our middle. A lot of times we see more of that in midlife too, but preservation of muscle mass. And that is really important because we need our
Yeah.
muscle mass. And that's something we naturally lose if we're not actively engaged in some strength training. And so that alone, to be able to improve your metabolic health, drive down visceral fat, total body fat percentage, but maintain your muscle mass is a huge win for
Yeah.
anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as you're talking about all of these different conditions like cancer, autoimmune, metabolic disorder, I mean, obviously, how you eat and the timing of what you eat is important.
Yeah.
But talk to me about like how you feel about like food as medicine.
Yes, I love that concept. I think in today's day and age, we're all about instant gratification,
Yes,
so that's
yes,
so that's hard because that tends to put us more on this kind of pharmacy first focus, where
right.
we're treating symptoms, and not that that's all bad. And we have people that come in medications, and they may not be able to come off of some of the medications that they're on ever. And so we never ever make anybody feel bad about that. But if we can dig deeper and treat the
Yeah,
root causes of disease and help you come off of medication, that's really what we want to do. So that's one component, that pharmacy first that society's all about, that we want to shift to more food as medicine. But
yeah,
even generic nutrition counseling, and I'm a dietitian, like there's great nutrition counseling out there that they can support, but sometimes the information is not specific to the individual.
yeah,
And then there's lifestyle medicine, which we actually preach in our programs. It's part of our curriculum to really focus not just on nutrition, but about
Yeah.
exercise, strength training, the importance of sleep, and as I mentioned a minute ago, community and stress. Those all impact us.
Yeah.
But there's some limitations there too. And so that's where I feel like, using the fasting mimicking diet as food as medicine is really kind of the missing puzzle piece to help improve overall health. Actually, our company, I like to think of food as medicine as a couple of things. So we have medical and nutrition therapy from our dietitians, meeting with our members and really seeing what are their goals. That looks different person to person, and really
Yeah.
that's what we're achieving. It's not about achieving the same standard for every single person that comes in the program. It's meeting them where they are and then helping them improve themselves, their health.
Yeah.
And then, using the fasting mimicking diet kind of as an interventional tool for just as needed. And ideally, if there's no comorbidities and you're just looking for prevention, as we talked about earlier, maybe 3 or 4 cycles of that a year. That's what I do personally for the fast. I just did one a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And that's what I would recommend if you're generally healthy. But if you have a metabolic condition or if you have diabetes, I truly recommend being in a program setting where there's a little structure, there's support. Actually, those that are in our diabetes program, there's physician oversight too to also tell you what to do with your medications during the fast so that you're safe, and and to watch your labs a little more closely and give guidance on how to de-escalate those. But we also have a sister company that has medically tailored meals. And sometimes I hear that term medically tailored, we think, oh, that's not for me. But I have a lot of clients, women, men that are busy. And maybe
Yeah.
they like to cook, but maybe they just don't have the time. Maybe
The
you don't have
time.
the desire. Maybe you just don't enjoy it. And so that's nice to be able to incorporate, to have some things on hand that are just healthy that you can quickly pop in the oven and have for yourself. So we have this whole kind of portfolio of food as medicine tools that
Yeah.
we can share with our members that are in our programs, and I think they're so helpful. I really love pushing food as medicine, and in fact, like the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, American Diabetes Association, Lifestyle, ACLM, the Academy of Lifestyle Medicine, they all recognize fasting mimicking diets as a non-pharmacological approach to driving improvements in metabolic health. So it is accepted, widely across
Yeah.
organizations that we can trust.
That's amazing. It really is. So, if someone wanted to start, just intermittent fasting
Yeah,
first,
yeah,
where would you recommend they start?
yes.
Doing like a 12-12?
I would start with the 12-12. And if you are looking for something, and you want to go a little bit tighter and you want to do maybe a 16-8, or maybe you want to do a 14-10, something like that, and you're a little bit nervous about it, I would go
Yeah.
on our prolonlife.com site and you could get some fast bars. And that's something you could
Okay.
have in the morning. You wouldn't want to have coffee that has cream in it because
Yes.
that would kick you out of a fasting state. But you could, let's say 8 a.m., have a cup of black coffee, or maybe you have a cup of green tea, and you have a fast bar that could kind of be your breakfast. And that helps you kind of extend your fasting window. So you could, if you stopped eating the night before at say 7, and then the next morning you pass the 7 a.m. window, you have this bar at 8, it gives you some nourishment so you don't feel the need to eat anything until lunch, then you'll have a good kind of 13, 14-hour fast there, but not feel deprived.
Yeah.
So that's a nice way to kind of ease into it. The other thing, too, as far as intermittent fasting, some people really like to do the 5-2 method. And sometimes I'll work with members of my own that want to try that. We have resets, metabolic resets, and it's like a 1-day fast kit. And sometimes
Okay.
that's a nice way to try kind of some intermittent fasting in that way. So you eat your normal diet for 5 days, but pick 2 days that you do a reset on those days.
Right.
Um,
That's great.
so that's an easy way. And of course, you can do some fasting on your own too, just with water as well. But if you feel like that would be challenging for you, using the metabolic reset or using the fast bars is kind of a nice way to ease into it.
Yeah. So explain, because I think a lot of people think of intermittent fasting as complete caloric restriction.
Right.
So, but with the Prolon
Yeah.
fast bars or
Yeah.
with the Prolon extended program, there's certain foods that you can eat that are mimic fasting,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. So all the foods in our programs in the 1 day reset, the fast bars, the 5 day prolonged fasting, they're all real food. Sometimes people want to think that it's shakes or you're just juicing for
Yeah.
that week, but it's actually real food. There's olives, there's a chocolate crisp bar, there's soups that you get each day. There's like kind of granola bar types of bars that you have on day one of the 5 day fast. You get those 2 times, but it's a fast bar. There's teas. There's a special L drink on the prolonged fast that really helps with muscle preservation. But it's real
Okay.
food. There's almond kale crackers. Our foods are imported from Italy. And so they're really, really high quality, good foods that you get to consume while getting the benefits of whether you're doing the intermittent fasting or the prolonged fasting.
Yeah. So your body basically is just recognizing very minimal calories. Is that what it
That's
is?
exactly what it is. And sometimes people have shared that they try to mimic a fast at home. And I know you can do that. Of course, you can do the water fasting, but it's not really just about calories. It's
Yeah.
really about precise macronutrients. Certain nutrients kick us out of a fast, like too much
Okay.
protein. That's one of the
Yeah.
number one foods to kick us out of a fast, and then carbohydrate. So, kind of the macronutrient makeup of the fast products is high plant-based fats, and it's a little bit lower in protein, a little bit lower in carbohydrate, and that's what kind of keeps you under the radar. So, you could do it at home, but having the precision, having something that's been researched, takes the guesswork out of it, and you get those benefits of a fast without having to do all the prep
Yeah.
and get the guarantee. So,
Yeah. I mean, that's a very nice feature
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so I know earlier in the conversation you mentioned health span.
Yeah.
So, normally we talk about our human life as lifespan.
Mhm.
So tell us, what really is the difference and why do we care about that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we do some prolonged fasting, what we do is we decrease the age of our cells. In
Oh,
fact, there
wow.
was a study just last spring in Nature Communications publication showing that 3 to 4 cycles of a prolonged fast in a year can reduce your bio age by 2.5 years. So, what that
Wow.
means, we have our chronological age, which is our current age, but then our bio age is the age of our cells. And when we talk about kind of the longevity health, when we talk about health span, kind of our lifespan is how long we live, but I don't know about you, Chrissy, but I don't, it's not something I aspire to be like 110, 120.
Right.
But what I really want is to have the energy to do the things that I want to do to feel good for as long as I can. And to me,
Absolutely.
that's health span. That's why
Yeah.
it's important to maintain our muscle mass. That's directly linked to health span. That's why we want to have prevention, and we want to eat right and put some good practices into our everyday lives now, not for perfection. I always think of my mother when I say that word because she always used to tell me of playing piano, like practice makes perfect. But I like to tell my
Yeah.
members practice makes progress. And let's just keep one foot in front of the other. There's going to be some slip ups, but that's how we can achieve a better, longer health span is by putting into good play nutrition and having support, building in some exercise. And that's something we really focus on in our programs is helping create and break bad habits, but create good habits so
Yeah.
that you can have that health.
Yeah. It's amazing how important it is to really just focus on what you do every day,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. It is.
Habits are just so important to our overall health, and not just for right now, but for what it's going to look like 10, 20, 30 years from now.
Exactly. Sometimes it's hard to get there. And if that feels
Yeah,
overwhelming, don't focus on that. Like focus on what can I do today to improve
today,
my health.
exactly.
That's one
Yeah,
thing. One of our kind of lessons that we focus on in our program is habits, but also reframing. We're really good. I think we all are at trying to get out of something. We try to identify with different things, and like, oh, I'm going to be overweight. My whole family's overweight, and we
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
put ourselves,
Accepting.
we kind of identify that way, but it doesn't have to be like that. It might be
Yeah,
that everybody in your family eats the same way, and maybe you can do something different to have a different impact on your health. And so that's something we work through, maybe different mantras that we can state, but a lot of reframing, like how does this meal impact my future health? How does this snack make me feel 3 hours from now?
yeah,
And sometimes those little things like that can make a big difference and help us kind of push beyond some of the sugar cravings that we may have, salt cravings that we may have, so that we can, get into a good place, a good rhythm.
yeah. I love that idea of reframing. I think that it's so important. And I think when you really do stop and ask yourself those questions prior to putting something in your mouth,
Hmm.
it truly makes you stop and think, because you know what you're going to feel like after.
Yes.
And it's the question, is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Is it worth it?
Exactly. Yeah.
And most of the time it's not.
Right.
Because there are healthier alternatives
Right.
where you won't feel that way.
Right.
And it's really, those habits can help little by little
Hmm.
uncovering what those are.
Yes. Yes. No, absolutely. That's where it's hard. And sometimes we need to
Yeah.
give ourselves a little grace in midlife too. It's
Yes.
okay to enjoy some of the foods that we
Absolutely.
love, but then don't let it downward spiral you. Like
Yeah.
next meal, then get back to your regular, your healthier choices. Really
Yes.
important. Don't, if we are going to have something, I don't want to make myself feel bad about it. I'm like, what? I want to enjoy this piece of pumpkin pie.
Yeah.
The
Exactly.
traditions,
Absolutely.
it's nostalgic, all the things. It tastes
Yeah.
good. I enjoy it. But I'm not going
Yes.
to let it ruin the day.
Yeah.
Then the
Or
next,
eat the whole pie.
or eat the whole pie. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
You're gonna have a
learning to kind of
slice. Yeah.
savor it. They say really
Yes.
that the first like 3 or 4 bites usually fulfills that craving, and then sometimes we just finish. And maybe we're
Yeah.
hungry, but sometimes we just finish because it's there and we don't want to waste either. So, but I think
Absolutely.
being in tune to your body, kind of listening to those hunger cues, those pausing, asking yourself, am I satisfied? Some of those little things that we can do to help to not overeat, can make a
Yeah.
difference.
Absolutely. So tell my listeners, where can they find more information about all of this fabulous information that you just gave us?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Well, if you're interested in trying any of the fasting products or the resets that I mentioned for intermittent fasting, go to prolonlife.com,
Okay.
prolonlife.com. We also have a program through Prolon Life that is really kind of gets to work with the dietitians on my team, and it's a Prolon guided health and metabolic wellness program, and it's a
Okay.
great place if you just want support. And you don't have to
Yeah.
have metabolic disease. You can maybe just have a couple of pounds that you want to lose, or maybe you just want somebody to give you guidance using the prolonged fasting products or even using the intermittent fasting products.
Yeah.
And if you know you have a metabolic condition you're wanting to really zone in and work on, or if you have diabetes and want some support there, L-Nutra, Nutra health.com. You can find out more about our programs there. Either site can help you and direct you to the other if you get to one and need help. And there are free health coach calls there where they can help. The health ambassador will help you navigate what's the best program for you, or if you just want products, where should I start? So there's
Yeah.
assistants there, really easy to help just give you guidance.
Yeah. I mean, that's really amazing because it sounds like you have so many offerings for really where anybody wants to start.
Yes,
Yeah.
anybody. And the average age in our programs are in the 60s. I mean, I have people from 30s to upper 80s in our
Yeah.
programs and then use our products and successfully. So if you were in your 60s or 70s and you're like, oh, maybe it's too late for me, it's not. And if
No.
you are in your 30s and 40s and you're like, oh, am I too young for this? This is a great place for you to come in and join.
Yeah.
It's really for everybody. I always, I want, and I'm saying women here since this is
Yeah.
mostly for women, but
Totally.
the key message is that really
Yeah.
midlife is your time to kind of rise and take control of your health and feel empowered as opposed to letting it make you feel like, oh, I'm on the downward slope. No, don't feel that way. You have
Yeah.
so much left, so much time, and we want to help you make the most of that.
Absolutely. I feel like midlife is the time
Yeah,
to really reset,
yes,
figure it all out, and set new habits and
yeah,
discover more of your intuition and what feels right for your body and
right.
what's right and individual for you and
Hmm.
what works for you. And sometimes that's a process, it's a
Yes,
journey
it
that
is.
we all have to kind of go through. But I think it's so important to take that time and really listen and tune in to
Yeah,
what it is that we're
yeah.
doing each and every
Listen to your
day.
body. You can take charge of your health, make intentional choices and really just
Yes.
embrace that. And that's why I do love, the fasting mimicking diet. I love our programs because it gives you tools that you can use and it's real science and there's support to help you improve your overall health. And I would honestly say feel free to reach out to me too.
Great.
My email address, I don't mind sharing it with the group, is A and then
Great.
Bizzell, Bizzell at l-nutra.com. I'd be more than happy to just answer questions that you might have.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. And what a wonderful resource you are for our listeners. So thank you
thank
for that.
you. Yes, thank you so
Yeah.
much. It's been a
Yeah.
pleasure to be on here with you today, Christy. I really appreciate the time and
Same to you, Ashley. Oh my gosh, I loved our conversation. I'm so sorry about my voice, but
oh,
I loved listening to you
oh
and hearing
yes,
all about, the benefits truly of intermittent fasting and the
yes.
prolonged fasting mimicking diet. I feel like are really endless. And I do intermittent fasting, but I'm very excited to try the fasting
I'm
mimicking diet
excited for you
because
to try it.
I would like a little like garbage cleanup in the
Yes,
body. And I think it's very attainable.
yeah,
5 days you're still eating.
right.
I'm going to pick like a 5 day window. It's like a Monday through Friday.
Yeah,
That will work. And I think it sounds amazing.
yeah.
I think
It's
it's something we
really
all need.
Yes, I think it's something we all need. And, one thing too, in the program setting is sometimes if you're intimidated by 5 days. The dietitian
Yeah.
is really good at working with you and we can shorten that window a little bit, still get you into some autophagy, but maybe, as you become more metabolically flexible, really drive, working to the 5 days. So that's important too, to have that personalization
Yeah.
to you. So, because every individual that comes, we have a lot of people that even from an outward appearance are thin and maybe they're working out, maybe they're eating right, but they still have insulin resistance. So we might
Yeah.
approach them totally differently than somebody, that maybe has 50 to 100 pounds that they want to lose and has insulin resistance. So I think personalization
Yeah.
is key.
Yeah. It's huge because we're all different,
Yeah.
to your point.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Ashley. And guys, we will link all of this information in the show notes for you to find. And I want to thank you so much for being here today, for listening to Suburban Warrior Podcast. You can find us at suburbanwarriorpodcast.com. Sign up for our weekly newsletter as well as download our free From Pause to Power perimenopause roadmap. Thanks so much for being here. I'll be back next week. See you guys.